2024 Palisade running boards.
Hey, Pa. Guess what I...
It's a passenger rear, passenger center, passenger front. It gets assembled. Rear hardware, middle hardware, and the front hardware. Noticing the bracket assembly. It's assembled. Noting I only showed one washer, but there's a washer on this side and a washer on that side, with a lock washer under that nut. Loosely assembled. Each bracket will get the retainer, the washer and the nut, and all three of those. So you end up with the front, center, and rear. Noting for the installation, you will have removed a plug in the front, plug in the middle, two plugs in the rear, and a collection of screws that hold the fiber under panel. Fiber under panel that I showed previously will be completely removed once you take all the bolts out, and then the plugs are easy enough to remove by hand or tool. Oh, I'm using a 17mm deep well for the big nuts, a 13mm, and I've actually got 13mm on the drill somewhere to tighten up the assembly on the front bracket, and a 10mm for installing all of the hex nuts and screws that you previously removed. You're going to use some of those. Nowhere did I see it specified, but Black Horse goes toward the front of the vehicle. You are provided with a number of T-nuts to install, but as you can tell by this assembly, there's no way to install them without completely disassembling the running board. They realized they goofed, and they added T-nuts and already pre-installed, so you have to loosen all of these so that they will attach to the brackets once they are installed underneath the car. That part will stick out. And with the T-nuts slid around to line up with the brackets once they're installed, you'll have to get those to drop through the slots. You see that one still needs a nut, but this will allow you to adjust your running board. Just a quick shot showing the front bracket. So there's a rubber plug that has to be removed from up there, and the hanging nut fits inside, and another hanging nut fits under there, as well as a nut which goes on the thread that is part of the body. So you'll have that sticking out, and then the running board sitting on top. So a notable issue, the underbody cover comes with a press-on twist to tighten nut. I don't like them very much, so I cut them away and replaced them with a nut and washer. So in doing the reinstall, I had to trim away some of the underbody for the bracket so that the screws would go back in. And this is one of the press to install and twist to tighten. I cut it out and replaced it with a washer and a nut. It's just much more effective. And I ended up trimming away a section of the underbody insulation to go around the bracket. The actual nut is underneath. You don't have to cut it completely away, so that actually covers up the chassis nut. This is one that I did not remove. As you can see, it just pops right off. You can put it on, twist to tighten, but it's really not very effective because it just doesn't hold. You will find some of these have plastic spacers, such as this. In this instance, I had to remove the plastic spacer in order to put the nut on because it wouldn't fit through. Especially in this instance, where the screw goes through the underbody and through the bracket and then into the body. Its screw is not long enough, so you have to remove the plastic reinforcement and put a metal washer in there. Of course, there are 2 screws on each bracket. Loosening these 2 screws, or the 2 nuts, will allow you to slide the unit either in or out, away from the stick out further. I didn't find sliding it in was very good. Sliding it completely out seemed to be the best configuration. So with all 3 pulled as far out as they would go, that would be the running board on the passenger side completely installed, and running board on the driver's side completely installed. You see, I'm pretty close to flush with the wheel well, which leaves a slight gap at the front. I don't know, wherever you want it. You might notice, if you look closely underneath, you'll see jack stands. I found that once the running boards were actually attached, you could not get underneath the vehicle, so I had to jack up front and back and put jack stands. And with that, my 2024 Palisade now has running boards. And while this is probably the worst video on installation of running boards on a 2024 Palisade, that seems to be the only video, as I found on the internet, it actually shows all the details. There you are.